We don't want them to have to waste their time, worrying about their data. Is it right? Is it accurate? Is it in the right place?
Higher Education Statistics Agency, Office for Students as well. So there's lots of regulatory things that we need to consider when we're talking about or thinking about data migration. Is not just what do you need in terms of getting your new processes up and running and working properly, but what do we actually need from a regulatory point of view. What you don't want to do is spend all that effort getting nice clean data going into your new system, and then from day one it starts to get messy again. So you do need that governance.
Hi there, welcome to the Binary 10 podcast. My name's James Blake, I'm the CEO of Binary 10.
And my name's Steve Smales, and I am the Chief Operating Officer. Welcome to the series of podcasts where we like to talk about all things data migration related.
And also we'll talk about the human side of running a business, so we hope you enjoy.
Here we are again.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
Another be a good one, this one.
Absolutely, and this is going to be, I think it's the second, isn't it? In the
second
series.
in our series, yeah.
Second in the series of data migration within higher education. I think the first one was really good actually, and even when we talked through it, talking about all the challenges that higher education face, with data migration and those types of projects in general. But today, I think we're going to look at why does higher education need data migration? What is it there for? What's the purpose? And there's a few topics I think we're going to cover today that are really important. And I just wanted to kick off. I mean, there's obviously the obvious one. I mean, you only tend to need data migration when you're moving systems or upgrading systems. And of course, we know that that is a common thing that happens in higher education. And specifically, we've been involved in a few projects over the last few years. Similar sort of thing where their systems are coming out of use, coming out of support. They need to move to the cloud, and so data migration is a critical aspect of that. As we've talked about many times, and we've talked about on other podcasts. So for me, it's a big thing within higher education, and in fact, we've even recently really proud we've joined up with UCISA, which is an organisation we're really excited about because they put on lots of seminars, bring lots of universities together to discuss hot topics and things that impact them. And one of the things that we're passionate about, obviously, is data migration. So it's going to be a great opportunity, I think, for us to, visit these webinars, go out there, meet the people in the industry, and really promote the importance of data migration, especially with the challenges we talked about previously on funding and all other things, and making sure that they do data migration right and that they take it seriously and, put the right amount of effort around it. And hopefully we can help, right? That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. So I'd definitely kick off with that one, right? We know that, there's going to be lots and lots of programs and projects. We're aware that, higher education institutes are emerging. We're part of a project at the moment.
Exactly,
where a couple of
something that, with the universities merging, obviously you've got two sets of data. You need to bring them into one place, don't you?
Absolutely.
Ideally.
So there's going to be so many of these, and obviously what with, the last sort of 5-10 years, the move to the cloud, SaaS services, all that, it's all the fad. And higher education is starting to catch up now. There's a lot of programs where they're requiring to do that. So it's extremely important. That's the one I'll kick off with. But Steve, there's lots of other reasons why they need it.
Yeah, and I think, firstly, I think we should point out that UCISA stands for Universities and Colleges Information Systems.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't want to risk it. I thought I've said UCISA, but they get you, don't they? These higher education places, you have to know your acronyms and all the rest. of it.
Exactly. Acronyms are a pain, aren't they? But
yes.
No, it's good to know them. But that's great to be joining up with them. But I think universities, higher education in general, have their own specific data. So they're going to have the essentials like a lot of businesses have. You're going to have finance data, you're going to have HR, payroll, that side of things. But with the universities, with higher education, you've got a lot more sort of, I suppose, complex data as well around students and also around management information. You're looking at sort of a lot of budgetary information.
Yes.
You're looking at a lot of information around the courses, how successful those courses, how much do they cost. So there's a lot of management information needed by the decision makers as well. So that's on top of your standard data, but then you've got the student data as well, haven't you? So there's just all sorts of data to consider that's specific to higher education.
Yeah, and God, not that it scares me, but it just makes me realise again. You've just talked, you've probably just picked 4 or 5 from your head there, but again, it makes you realise as well that doing data migration properly and getting it right is so important because a lot of that information you talked about there is taken for granted.
Yeah.
And it should be, right? The people within these institutions, they're either students, they're doing their courses, they're studying for degrees, PhDs, whatever it might be. God, their life, and we all know what it was like, at that age and going through university, good times. But that's their focus. Their worry shouldn't be, is my data right? Is that accurate? Is this piece of information as it should be? If I don't, similarly to, professors and other people within those, even alumni, and people that are connected to higher education, we don't want them to have to waste their time, worrying about their data. Is it right? Is it accurate? Is it in the right place? It's so important that whenever we do these activities, we do them well. And sort of just enable them, empower them to do their daily lives, do the things that they're part of the HE organisation for, And so, I think that's where the passion really comes out. That's the meaning, isn't it? That's the tangible thing that is so important in higher education, that it's not about the data migration, it's not about the project, but it's making sure that that's done properly so that they can live out their lives, do what it is that they intended to do as part of these institutions, and do them well. We need to take that burden off them.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of things. I mean, because you mentioned students there, and you hold all sorts of information on students. Probably universities hold more information on their students as individuals as probably any other than any other organisation, in terms of the breadth of different types of information they hold on students. It might be about their academic background prior to the university, the courses they're on, their health, their accommodation, all sorts of different things, because it's not it's not like a client as such. You're actually looking after their welfare as well. Students change every year, so you've got a huge volume of data. The courses change every year, so there's massive amounts of data that's held on students throughout their entire time. And then you mentioned alumni as well, so you've got ex-students as well. So there's huge amounts of data to consider.
Yeah, and I think, and it's also some of the downstream organisations as well, isn't it? That all this data is obviously important for those people. But actually, if you think about us as a country and how we run our academic practices and our HE sector, central government, they want this information. They want access to this information so that, or at least we hope they do, and they should be prioritising that and running analysis to see how we can better, inform the HE sector and get them, get it working more efficiently. So there's that to consider as well, isn't there? Data migration is essential so that we can make sure all the right data is in the right place and accessible, not just to those institutions, but also, as a country, as part of the UK, to make sure that we've got all the information that we need centrally to run analysis against these things. And I think we might do another follow-up podcast where we're going to talk a bit more about standards and a bit more, about those aspects in higher education as well, that maybe people don't always think about, that there are these other institutions that govern, the HE sector. Yeah. And data is just as important to them as it is to the individual sites.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've got a Higher Education Statistics Agency, Office for Students as well. So there's lots of regulatory things that we need to consider when we're talking about or thinking about data migration. Is not just what do you need in terms of getting your new processes up and running and working properly, but what do we actually need from a regulatory point of view as well? And what are the requirements for that?
Absolutely. And data migration will benefit you there, right? I mean, we talked about it on our previous podcast about the landscapes of these institutions. You can have many, many source systems with different data. And in fact, a lot of the times duplicate data, right, that are held on similar systems. So it's so important that data migration is executed properly to bring those data sets together into a single place that can be easily reported from. I mean, that just takes the burden. I mean, I'm aware at the minute, I've seen it in other higher education institutions where they have a whole team that spends many, many weeks of the year preparing data, merging it, transforming it into a certain format required for some of those institutions you've mentioned, to provide the statistics. Whilst part of you, goes, oh, how frustrating, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
The other part of me goes, we can do something about this. Isn't this great? That's a problem for me. Yeah. We can absolutely improve that process. And that's where data migration can definitely help. I mean, it's obviously linked into the design and the right systems, but get your data migration right, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as well. I think we'll listen out for the next podcast because we'll talk about this. But beyond data migration, we will start to talk about data governance and data management. It's a really important topic, that, because yes, the hard work is definitely getting the data there, getting it to the end game. But the harder work is keeping it there and keeping it well oiled and keeping it valuable.
That's a really good point, actually, because certainly the older the legacy system, I suppose the more messy the data is and the bigger gaps you've got. And part of our job, part of our brief when we come in to do data migration for organisations, is to fill in those gaps, correct the data, get it nice and clean, going into a new system, so that you're starting your new system, your new processes with the data exactly as you want it to be, or as good as it can be within sort of budgets and resourcing, that they allow.
Yeah.
So what you don't want to do is spend all that effort getting nice, clean data going into your new system, and then from day one, it starts to get messy again. So you do need that governance. And
and let's really talk about this, and we'll pick it up in other podcasts, but it comes back to that funding issue, doesn't it? That funding will be very dedicated on that project to move all their data into this new system, to tick the boxes of, legacy systems are going out of support, we need to get with the times. But the funding consideration needs to be applied to what's the 6 months after that? What's plus 1 year after that? For data. What are we going to spend on data to keep it well managed, well oiled? And that should be being thought about at the start of these projects, not right at the end, because it's a waste of time if you do this project and you spend all your money and you think, yep, we've done it, we've hit our budget, and then you have no budget to keep on top, keep that maintenance up for that data, because within 6 months, a year, it will start going backwards again.
Yeah, and
so I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, you're going to hit all the old problems that you had on your old legacy systems as well, aren't you, with data? So something to be avoided.
Absolutely. Well, God, there's a lot we've gone through there. So I think I think to summarise, it's pretty obvious that in the short term and definitely longer term, the HE sector is going to be crying out for data migration. It's essential. It's going to be a key part. And we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep focusing on it because, we're passionate about data, but also really passionate and partnering the HE sector, especially over the last 5 years where we've worked closely with them. We've learned a lot. Me personally, I'm sure you're the same. I'm really keen to, work with you, Sizer. I think that's really super exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to
that. And just to promote the message and, really sort of, empower these institutions to be ready for data migration and do it properly.
Yeah, because it's been great, having that experience with, universities we've worked with so far and the other organisations linked to sort of student data as well. It's given us an insight specifically into higher education that maybe other consultancies might not have had that exposure that we've had, and it is insightful, and we've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and I suppose and we all say you should never assume, but again, unfortunately, it's kind of the HE sector. I don't want to say it doesn't help itself, but because they're academic, because you hold them in such esteem, and we should, right? The knowledge, the individuals, the professors, the students. I mean, they're the best of Britain, right? These people. And so you just assume that, well, all their data will be perfect and everything else will be perfect. But actually, and that's no detriment to them. Their efforts, their energies is on what they do and the research they do and the learnings that they do. So it's definitely an eye-opener to sort of say, oh God, wow, even brains better than ours, definitely a lot better than ours, can need our help, really, really take advantage and that'll actually really aid them, with their future aspirations.
So it's specialist knowledge, isn't it? And that's what universities are all about, and that's what we do as well.
Absolutely. No, I think that was really good. Really glad that we covered that. And I think we've got one more, haven't we? We've got one more podcast to come.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that. And then, hopefully, that's given individuals within the HE sector, some food for thought. Well, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was good.
And already looking forward to the next one. So, thank you, Steve, and see you next time.
See you next time. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining our podcasts.
If you want to see more, please like and subscribe.